October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Month. If you or someone you care about has lost a child to stillbirth, miscarriage, SIDS, or any other cause at any point during pregnancy or infancy, please join us in raising awareness. Trigger warning. In this episode, we discuss miscarriages, pregnancy, and birth. Okay.
Hello, wonderful llamas. Welcome to Sorry for Trauma Dumping. I'm one of your hosts, Erica.
And I'm Alex.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, if you are listening to this by viewing it, you can see we have a third person.
That's me.
Yes.
We have our guest, Brooke. She's back for another episode. Hello, Brooke.
Hello. Happy to be here.
I thought you were going to say Happy Tuesday, and I'm like, it's not Tuesday. But
I mean, I would be surprised if I had the day of the week wrong, but no.
All right, so this will be the fourth episode in our mini series. Today's topic is adoption. So Brooke is going to share all of her trauma and her story of everything to do with her adoption story and just everything that goes along that to leading to that. So
it's an exciting adventure.
The floor is yours. You can share whatever you'd like to.
Okay, let's go. I'm super excited. Okay, I really am. Okay, so my story is complicated. It starts back when I was a child, actually. So my family has a chromosome abnormality. And honestly, we could do like 18 episodes just talking about that. So I'm not even going to try to go into like the science behind that. Long story short, our genetic makeup is messed up. I have messed up genetic makeup. My chromosomes are. And so my mom as well, and my grandpa and others in the family. So I witnessed my mom going through a lot as a child. She had 9 pregnancy losses altogether, and I was there for all of it because I am her youngest. I remember most of them, and going to hospitals, and she had several failed in vitro fertilization attempts. She had one failed adoption attempt. Like, this woman was put through the ringer, basically. And I was there, and my mom and I were very close, and so I only say that because I was aware of kind of what could be coming for me when I grew up, because I found out, I think when I was maybe early middle school, that I was also a carrier of this genetic abnormality, which was absolutely devastating to me because I didn't know up until then. I guess my mom just like wasn't ready to talk to me about it, and my grandma actually accidentally told me about it, and she felt awful because I was just devastated, and she's like, I thought you knew. And because she had like referenced when I grew up and had these issues. Like, what? So anyway, so I was aware. I was thinking, though, that probably wouldn't be my reality until I was like mid-20s or something. I found out I was pregnant when I was 20 years old. That was not the plan. I was not trying to get pregnant. I got pregnant on accident, like you do sometimes. But I wanted the baby, like I did. I really was scared for about 5 minutes, and then I was excited and scared for different reasons, because it was like kind of like a oh shit, I'm pregnant, that's scary. I wasn't trying to get pregnant. I'm 20, I live in this small little apartment, like I'm not ready. And then like, oh, but you saw everything your mom went through, like, and you might actually lose this baby, and actually that thought sucks even worse. Like, and so it was this very like complicated feeling. I tried to just like push that back, though. My mom was like, just act like you're having a baby, don't sit and think in it, just be excited. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna be excited. So like, we had an ultrasound not too long after I found out. We like saw a heartbeat, and that was really exciting. We scheduled my genetic testing for Iowa City to see like if the baby was healthy, if they had the abnormality. Everything seemed to be going really well, and we made it to Iowa City and for the testing. And when they went to start the testing, there was no heartbeat, and I didn't expect that. Like, I think because I had seen a heartbeat and I hadn't like miscarried, I had kind of like emotionally prepared myself for like maybe like to get bad news from the testing down the road, but that I did not expect. Like, just like, oh, yep, there's no heartbeat. Like, okay. So that was really hard. That was really, so considering I was 20 years old and I had just turned 20 years old. Like, I turned 20 in March. I found out I was pregnant in April. I was a little baby. That was the first real like adult moment of my life. Like, just like talk about like heartbreak and like just, I don't know, that I feel like that was a crossing point. That was a turning point in my life, definitely. So anyway, what do you do when you're 20 and you didn't mean to get pregnant and now you're not pregnant and you're sad? I don't know. What do you do? So I just kind of went back and did my life, and I ended up getting pregnant 2 more times in the next 2 years. Not entirely intentionally, not entirely not intentionally. It was kind of one of those things where I felt like it was irresponsible at the place where I was in my life at that moment to go like get pregnant, because I was not in a position where I was like stable enough to say like I'm trying to get pregnant. Like, but I wanted a baby. Like, I had it, like, you know, and so that was a really complicated thing for me. So anyway, I got pregnant 2 more times and I had 2 more pregnancy losses. Just, I don't need to go, you know, deep into either of those. But so that brings us to November 2013. I was just kind of a mess. Like, I was so sad, and we'd moved, like, well, we'd gotten a new place by now. I'm trying to think of where we even were at that time. We were in an apartment. We still weren't maybe the most responsible humans in the world, but we'd come leaps and bounds since that first pregnancy, definitely. And I was just a mess. I was so hurt all the time. I just wanted a baby. It was all I thought about ever. And so my last pregnancy loss was in November. It was the next month that a family friend, and I'm not going to go into any details at all. I respect the privacy of my daughter's birth parents, and they don't want the information out there. So I will just be very vague that it was somebody that we know. They had seen my Facebook posts and they were familiar with our situation. That I had multiple pregnancy losses. They had gone through struggles as well in their life, and they had children, but they were not in a position to have a baby, and they had found out that they were pregnant. And so they asked me if I would be interested in raising their baby. And of course, I just wanted to be like, yes. But, you know, I was in a partnership. And so I had to go talk to my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. That was a little harder because we were still young. I mean, I was still 21 years old. So this wasn't even 2 years later yet. I mean, it was close to 2 years later, but it wasn't 2 years later. And so, you know, all of that had happened in the span of, you know, you can do the math there, from April to, you know, November. It doesn't matter. But anyway, the point is, so I went and I talked to him. He was hesitant. I did end up saying, though, because I just kept thinking about it. He had told me, like, give me some time and I'll give you an answer. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to raise this baby. And I was like, if you don't want to, that's okay. I'm like, I'm not going to make you. Like, you're not. And what that means for us, that can be whatever you want that to mean for us, but like, I want to raise this baby and I don't want to make you do something that you're not ready to do. And so I don't know if that was selfish or not, but like in that moment, that's what I felt like I needed to do. And he hadn't like said no or anything. He just said he wasn't sure. And so I was like, if you don't want it, if you don't want this, that's fine. Like, if you need to walk away from me, that's fine, or whatever, or just coexist with us. Or if you want to raise the baby with me, that's awesome too. Like, all of that is great. He did come around and say, like, pretty quick after that, like, okay, no, it's okay, let's do it. So then here we go, yay, we're going to adopt a baby. And so at this point, birth mom was not sure how far along she was. She knew that she was far enough along to feel the baby move, and she had just found out, though. So she just found out later, like some people do, I guess. She had found out not long before. So this was December 18th or something like that she came to us initially. So we had a few weeks to just kind of like talk with her and with her husband and family and make, just kind of some plans. We went to an ultrasound with her. She invited us to come to her first ultrasound because she had found out so late in her pregnancy. So they were going to like find out gender and everything. So this was in January now. We come to the ultrasound and they do the ultrasound, and basically the technician is like, oh, this baby is huge. Like, like this is a big baby. And then they're like whispering and stuff and like, excuse me, I have to leave. And I'm like, what's happening? And then they come back and they're like, you're full term. Like, this baby is ready to come out. Like,
I remember when you told everyone she had just announced it at like New Year's, like, oh, we're adopting a baby. We're like, oh my god, that's so cool. And then it turns out like, oh, like really soon. Like, she didn't realize how soon it was. I just remember going to the party and she announced it. And I was like, oh my god, Brooke, I'm so excited. And then everything was so fast.
Yep. Yeah, it was so fast. So then she was like, okay. And they're like, well, we want to induce you in 4 days. And like, they wanted to induce her like then. And I was like, no, you can't. I was like, I'm not ready for a baby. We haven't like gotten anybody for a home study or anything. Like, we can't. Can you please give us more time? So this was Friday. They said they would give her until Tuesday. And then that's it. Like, you're coming in and you're having a baby on Tuesday, basically. And
how did she not know she was pregnant?
I don't know. It is perplexing to me as well. But I think that, I don't know. I know that she did feel the baby move, and that was how she had figured out she was pregnant. And so she just, I guess some people feel it later on. I don't know.
And she could have had the same thing that you had with Ray, where
that's true.
Where what was that called exactly? I can't remember.
I think it's an anterior placenta is what it's called. I thought about that after our last podcast, and like when I was done, I was like, it's called an anterior placenta because I couldn't remember what it was called. That's what it is. When the placenta is like in the front, and so so the baby essentially would be like kicking the placenta instead of kicking you. So I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons why that happens, but it seems strange to me. But anyway, so from there, we had to get a initial home study started before the baby could come home. That is like legally what you have to do, or baby goes to foster care when they're born. Even if birth parents are like, here, have my baby, you legally cannot take that baby. So basically Friday afternoon, we like got into the phone book, which is weird that we like got on a phone, but there was a literal phone book involved here. And we were like looking up the yellow pages here for adoption people. And we found someone that would be willing to come out that weekend for an initial home study, which is hard to do. So we're like, okay, cool. This lady, you're going to be our home study lady. That's awful. I will get more into that later. But anyway, so we went now from, and let me switch to my next page here, on Friday through Tuesday, from ultrasound to Tuesday, baby. So yeah, ultrasound. Called adoption lady. She said, yeah, sure, I'll come out on a Saturday. And then my husband and I moved that night out of our apartment, which we had already been planning on moving out of, but we were going to move into a 3-bedroom house was our plan, or like a 2-bedroom or whatever. We were living in this little apartment that we were going to move out of. We just didn't know that there was like a rush to like right now move out. And so we ended up moving into my parents' house like that day. And like, okay, let's just go get our things from the hospital right now, because my parents have like a really big house. They have like a 6-bedroom house or something like that, and like a bunch of like so basically we just moved in there. And then that night we had to get their house ready for this lady to come the next day. And these home studies are so, I mean, if you have chipped paint, they will ding you on it. Like, literally, if you have, like, a chip of paint on the wall. So we had to just, like, clean and scrub and repaint these little tiny patches on the walls. And so, basically, then the next day she comes, none of us have slept. So this is, like, my family and my husband. And I, like, yeah, I had, like, a friend come to, I don't even remember who. We had a few friends. I don't even remember. It's such a blur. Like, who all was even there. Like, but yeah, so we got ready, and we did successfully get ready, and she came and she like passed us for that like initial inspection or whatever. Like, yeah, sure, baby can come home with you, but that's definitely not the end of like your home study situation. So that had all happened. And then after that, we were like, okay, so now a baby is like for real coming. We need baby things. And so like I put a post on Facebook, and I'm like, so here's the deal. Like, we have a baby coming in 4 days or 3 days or whatever at this point. Like, anybody have extra baby things? Like, I would love some help. Like, and holy crap, like so this is the feel good part of all of this, is that my community rallied around me, and I feel emotional and I have goosebumps every time I think about it. It's amazing to me. Like, people I had never met, like people were sharing my post, and there were just people in my inbox just like, hey, I have this and this. Could you come pick it up? Or I could drive it to you. Like, we got everything. Like, I didn't need to I bought like a coming home outfit and like a diaper bag. Everything else, other people gave me. Like, and there were new things. People were buying us things like diapers, and like it was wild. Like, I will always be grateful for that. I also was given like a bunch of breast milk too. So we did milk donations for Ivy, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to nurse her. I wanted so hard to try though, because they have like these like systems where you can like induce lactation. That was something I was going to do, and then, you know, the baby was coming now. So I got a bunch of milk donations too, which some people are really grossed out about that. I mean, it's whatever. These are like people in our community that like just have like freezers full of breast milk that is going to get thrown away anyway.
My cousin Brittany, she overproduces.
Yeah.
And she has freezers. Like, she has her regular freezer and she has a deep freeze, and she just pumps and pumps and pumps. And her kids are still actively feeding off her. Yeah. But they're still, and she has twins. She has twins. Wild. And they're eating off her, and she just has so much milk. She's just like filling up her freezer and giving it away. And she did that with her 2 other pregnancies as well. She's one of the lucky ones who just wild. Produce a crazy amount of milk. So yeah, no, that's great.
No, I was able to with Ivy. Her whole until she like was eating solids was all donor milk. So I never had to like buy formula or anything. That was very, very lucky. Like, because formula is expensive. Like, so expensive. I saved so much money that way. And like, it's awesome that it was breast milk. I have a little bit different feelings now about like formula versus breastfeeding. We talked about that. We touched on that actually in the last episode. Yeah. So like now mostly I see it like it's awesome that happened. It's awesome that the community like rallied to do that for me. And it's awesome that I saved a bunch of money, you know, like, but yeah, anyway, so that happened. So where were we now? I went too far on my notes. Did I miss a page? Oh no, it's right here. Sorry. So we had the home study. We got the stuff for the baby. Like, we got all this stuff. All the wonderful people in my life rallied around us. Then I had to go to work on Monday and tell them oh, hey, guess what, guys? Tomorrow I'm having a baby. No, not me, but, you know, like I'm adopting a baby. Like, because I'd already talked to them about it. But at this time, it's just still like, you know, this is casual still at the time. Like, I thought we had like 4 months, honestly.
Yeah,
like,
no one expected it to come
no,
that fast.
not even birth mom thought that, you know? So, like, we're all shocked. And so yeah, I went in and I was like, yo, you remember how, like, I said I was going to be adopting a baby? Well, that baby's coming tomorrow. And I was like, what did you ever figure out? Because where we had left off was she said, like, oh, yeah, I'll figure that out for you. Well, she was like, you don't qualify for anything. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you know, because I had not been an employee for an entire year yet, I did not qualify for maternity leave. And I'm not talking about paid maternity leave. I didn't care at that point if it was paid or not, but like letting me be off of work. Like, basically she was saying, like, you have to go to work. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I was like, that's not an option. And so I went and I had a meltdown because, like, I am low on sleep, just found out I got a baby coming, like, I have been running all over town, like, for days, and then they tell me, like, nope, you can't have any time off with your baby, like, you have to come back the next day. And I'm like, no. And I'm just sobbing, like, I was just sobbing, like, made an entire spectacle of myself, like, in the break room. And, like, the vice president guy, like, happened to walk through, and he was doing sort of like an awkward, like looking at me, like, what's happening here? So then I interestingly get called into HR again, not long after my little, like, meltdown, and they're like, okay, no. Well, we've decided to call corporate and we'll let you have 6 weeks off. And I'm like, that's interesting. Like,
you just needed to make a whole scene of yourself exactly. in order to, like, get it.
We're not trying to have this, like, PR nightmare here. Like, like, anyway, no, but I ended up being able to be home. So that was, though, the, like, I don't know, it was maybe like 20-30 minutes between, like, first and last conversation there. It was, like, the most dreadful, awful time, like, where I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, what can I do? So then we get that over with. And so I finish my day at work, and then we go home, finishing up with baby stuff. And, like, I was like, I'm going to bed tonight. Like, whatever is for tonight, whatever we're ready for or not ready for, like, baby's coming tomorrow. I'm going to sleep for my baby. I didn't sleep very well, of course.
I'm going to say that was your last full night's sleep that you ever got.
It wasn't a full night's sleep. It wasn't a full night's sleep, but I did my very best. So yeah, the next morning, like, so, you know, they, like, have the mom come in. They, like, call them when to come in, because it's weird because they can't just, like, give you a time. So then she called us, like, hey, they're ready for us. We met them there. Got to be there for the whole labor. My husband was there too, and my mom, and it was really nice. It was nice to be part of it, and we all had a good time together. We were, like, laughing and stuff and having fun, and she was, like, so it was so funny though, because she was at, like, 7 centimeters, and she had been, you know, kind of, like, progressing, not, like, super slowly, but, like, you know, kind of consistently. And then they broke her water, and we had ordered a pizza right before they broke her water. So then, like, the pizza comes, and they we go to get the pizza, and we're, like, in the room eating pizza, and then we come back, and they're like, she's pushing, the baby's coming, and I'm like, what? So we, like, run, and then Ivy just, like immediately, like, if we had come in that room, like, 30 seconds later, we would have missed her. Like, we would have missed her. And because she didn't even, like, have to push. Like, this kid was ready. She, like, catapulted out. She like did a somersault in the air. No, it was just wild though. It was like, yeah, she was ready to come out. And so basically like they lift the blanket. There's a baby there. So, but it was really great
I
to
bet
be
that
there.
was the quickest pregnancy she's ever had.
Right.
The quickest, the fastest.
Here we go. Yeah, it was something, that's for sure. But yeah, so I got to cut the cord and we got to like hold her right away and like I get to follow her to the warmer and it was amazing. And it really was. It was great. And we stayed in there with them for a long time that night, just all hanging out. We had like a few of our close friends and relatives come and like see us there. But then at the end of the night, we went to our own room with her. And so we got to, they took us to a separate room, which I thought was really great. Like, so we could stay, but then also they didn't have to like be sad, you know, like just hard. Like it's really hard. And I think that at the time I didn't understand, again, I'm still a 21-year-old girl at this point. I didn't understand how hard that had to have been for them. Just because they weren't explicitly saying that doesn't mean that it wasn't. And I know that it had to be. And now like my heart feels sad about that. Like, gosh, we probably should have left the room sooner, but they didn't tell it. So like my mind goes through all of that, but like, you know, but so, you know, that's part of it that I think about definitely is that I wish I would have been maybe a little bit more mindful of their feelings, but you only know what you know. And I was young and I didn't understand.
Right.
So we went to our own room, which was a little tiny like C-section room. So like if you have like a planned C-section, you're just given like a tiny room. And this room was tiny. So we went and we like slept and whatever. And then the next day we had people start coming to visit and that was wild, like really wild. Cause it was very busy. I was very overwhelmed. And so actually the nurses kicked everybody out, which I was really glad they did. I felt bad, but I was like, this is too much.
That's their job. They're there for
it
that.
is. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Like, but so I'll try to get through this quicker because I've been talking about this for a long time. We haven't gotten to the other part of the adoption stuff, but so Ivy started having like labored breathing. It was either the next day, I don't remember exactly when in the timeline that was. And so basically like they were concerned and they're like, we're worried about her breathing because it was just kind of like a really like nasally, just like breathing hard, like in her chest was like, what is that called? I can't even think of what it's called. Retracting. And so they took her to the NICU for an evaluation, which then it worked out okay because I had to still go to Des Moines to get like my fingerprints done. Because, you know, we're still doing this active adoption process very quickly and I hadn't been able to do that yet. Because it was Friday, we found out. Monday I had to go to work. Then Tuesday she was born. So this is now Wednesday or Thursday or something. So I had to drive all the way to Des Moines to get my fingerprints done when we left Ivy behind to be monitored. And while we were gone, they did an echocardiogram and they found that she had a hole in her heart. So it's VSD, which is why can't I think of what it's called? That should have been part of my notes. Ventricle something disorder. I don't remember. Anyway, the point is, so we found out she has a hole in her heart. And so that was hard. That was like a hard thing. Because just everything has happened so quickly already. And her birth mom felt so bad. And I felt so bad that she felt so bad because she was just like crying. And she's like, what if it's because I found out so late in the pregnancy? And what if I took something that I shouldn't have, or I didn't get prenatal care? And she was just like sobbing. And I was like, it is not your fault. It is not your fault. Like, we will get through this. It's going to be okay. Because she had come to see us in the hospital and she was really great. Like, it was nice to have her there. But so I think when we were at day 5, then we were released to go home. And that's kind of where we started, you know, being at home now. And so now here's life at home with baby. And so we would have had another home study pretty quick after that. I don't remember exactly when it was. So basically every time, so it's like you have like 5 or so that are planned between like birth and finalization. In a typical like adoption, that's how it was told it was going to be. So we would have had 5 left. So it would be like initial and then 1 each month and then finalization at 6 months. So that was the timeline she said would be. So basically she came out, we got all of those done. They were never like fun, but we always passed them and we got through it. Where was the next thing that I had here? So, sorry, I just got lost for a second there. This is okay. Kind of emotional for me to talk about. Like it's just really, this was a really heavy part of my life, a part of my life that kind of I've kind of pushed back in my thoughts a lot. Like, it wasn't until like recently that I just kind of chronologically thought about everything that I went through. And I was like, gosh, that is a lot. Like, and I was really young.
You had a lot on your plate.
Kind of didn't think about it for a long time. Like, I think that was like a defense mechanism. So like right now to talk about it, like I'm happy to talk about it, but it's like a little like heavy.
Yeah.
Anyway. Sorry about that. So we did like our visits and everything. So everything, I guess, from like the beginning of my maternity leave to the day before my maternity leave ended was pretty just standard. Like, had a baby, had an adoption visit, had people from my work come and visit me, like with gifts and all that fun stuff. And then the day before she turned 6 weeks old, which was the day that I was supposed to go back to work, was when I found out I was pregnant with my son. And I talked more about that on the last episode that I was on, and I don't need to get into that. But yes, very fun. And I was nervous for multiple reasons. I felt very, very guilty because I just had a baby. And I was like, my poor baby, like, you know, I just had her. Like, we just adopted her. We're adopting her, and now there's another baby maybe coming. But also maybe I will lose that baby because of all the chromosome abnormalities. So, of course, all this pain comes back as well. Like, you know, kind of the same thing as the first time I was pregnant. Like, well, this was not planned. This is scary, but I want this baby too. So that was just hard. So then we had the beginning of his pregnancy, saw a heartbeat, saw another heartbeat, because this time I was like, we are going like the day before my Iowa City appointment, and we are going to see this baby before I drive to Iowa City, because I'm never going through that again ever in my life. So we did, and he was looking good, and he was being crazy and swimming around and stuff. The day before, and then we got there that day. We did the testing. That was awful. It's like this big needle, and so I won't go into that. Terrible. Not a good day. But so then we'll fast forward. We found out he was healthy. Several weeks later, at this point, I'm like 12-ish weeks along, 12, 13 weeks along, found out he's healthy. He's a boy. Like, here we go. Now it's just regular pregnancy at this point. So that took, you know, a layer of the complication off of it. But it was still hard because we're still actively in the adoption process with Ivy. And I was really, really scared for the woman conducting the home study to find out, because I had already picked up on the fact that she was not entirely keen on me. I think that was for multiple reasons. She was very, very religious. I was not married. I think there was just a lot of judgment, and I felt that already. And then when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, this is not going to be good. Like, I knew it wasn't, so I didn't tell her. I was like, I don't probably legally need to tell her. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't sure. I was like, ask for forgiveness instead of ask for permission. I don't know. Like, so we got to the point where Ivy was about to be 6 months old. We were getting close to finalization. We'd been talking about court dates. I found out that I knew somebody that knew her, and she told her that I was pregnant. And now, in this woman's defense, she didn't know that I hadn't told her, and I had put it on Facebook, and that's my bad. Like, honestly, you put it out online, it's out online. And that's what she said to me when I brought it up to her. She's like, I didn't know, Brooke. Like, I'm sorry. I have figured that. Because I guess she was like, isn't it funny that, like, Brooke just is adopting a baby and now she's pregnant. Ha 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 ha.
But that stuff happens because the same thing happened to your mom.
It did. And I forgot. Oh my gosh. I glazed over a whole part of the story. Oh my gosh. My brother and everything. Anyway.
It's okay.
We're going to revisit that later.
We can come back to that.
Later. Anyway. Yeah. No, the same thing happened to my mom. It did. Anyway. So she texts me, and I will never forget. I was sitting in my car, and I was 20 weeks pregnant, I think, at this point. Like, I was nervous because we were supposed to be finalizing soon, and I knew that. So I knew that court was coming within the next, like, couple weeks, because we might have even been starting, like, to have a date and everything. So I was like, all right, if I wear a sweatshirt, it's not going to be obvious. I'm not sure. Because I was like, you like have that point where you're like passing between like you're obviously pregnant. Sorry, my alarm's going on. That you're obviously pregnant and like maybe you ate a really big like lunch that day. Like, so I was in that area at that point. So then I was sitting in my car and I got a text saying like, so-and-so told me that you're pregnant. Is that true? And I was just like, yeah.
But why does it matter?
It mattered to her. It mattered to her very much. And so she's like, well, this changes the timeline. And so she pulled our finalization date. And this is when my life became hell. It was awful. And so at that point, she just decided she didn't trust me anymore because I didn't tell her I was pregnant. And she already didn't like me, which I was aware of. And so now, not only am I, I lied, which I didn't lie. I omitted.
No.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I think me not being married was a huge part of it, to be honest. Like, I think that was a really big part of it. And now this baby was not being born by adoption. So there's, like, this is a real child of wedlock. Like, and so it was awful. And so she started to make all of these plans for like she wanted me to have all of these supports in place, which I never wanted to hear the word supports ever again in my life, because these supports that this woman put me through were not supportive. They were awful. And she decided that I had to like be part of all of these like peer groups and go to therapy and like so I'm pregnant obviously at this point. Like I'm at this point I think going like twice a month or something to the OB. Ivy has a hole in her heart. We're having home health nurses come. We're having her like actual cardio appointments. I'm having my OB appointments. I'm working 40 hours a week. And now she's like, well, you have to do therapy weekly. You have to go to these group sessions at whatever place. Like she gave me a list and she's like, you need to do this many from this category weekly. And
that's
it was
like
awful.
Overkill.
It was awful. Like, and I was working 40 hours a week and like, I almost lost my job. And I'm not even exaggerating. And it wasn't my fault. It wasn't because I was just like not going to work. It was because I couldn't keep up. Like I had so many appointments and I couldn't say no. I couldn't. Like I had to go. Obviously, Ivy had to go to her heart appointments. She had to have her home health visits. I had to go to my OB visits. And I had to do all of these things that she was requiring of me because she was the one that was in charge of if I could have my daughter or not. Like, so, and then the verbiage just all changed at that point too. It went from like when we finalized to more like if and stuff like that. And it was just so hurtful because I had not done anything wrong. I got pregnant. But I was a good mom, and everything that I had modeled had shown that I was a good mom and that my baby was taken care of. And then I had a supportive family. Like I lived with my parents that were very helpful and hands-on, and she knew that. Like, so it was just so, so hurtful to me. She also kind of like bullied me into signing a release with my therapist. So she got releases from all of Ivy's doctors, which I understood, like, so she could look through doctor stuff. Well, then she, like, had me sign a release with my therapist, like my mental health therapist. And I didn't want to, but like it didn't feel like it was, and I could have said no. I mean, legally, I absolutely could have said no, but
with the circumstances, you were like, you felt backed in the corner. Like, if I don't do this, she is gonna be like, oh, well, then
like,
you're not adopting this kid.
So like, what are you hiding? That's what I felt. She'd be
Right.
like, well, if you won't sign this, what are you hiding? So then I was going to therapy weekly because she was, therapy is great. Okay. I am not anti-therapy at all. I love therapy. But at this time it was just so much for me. Weekly therapy at this time was killing me because I didn't have time for it. I didn't have emotional energy for it. So then at my visits, when she came to see me, she was bringing up things she had read from the notes from my therapy sessions. Like, I read in the notes that you said blah, 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 blah. And so the next time I went to therapy after that, I was like, he was like, so how are you doing today? Or like, what do you have to say? I'm like, I feel like I can't say anything because people are reading the notes. And I was like, so I don't think I'm going to talk. And he was, I don't know, I don't remember what he had said. Like, he was sorry I felt that way or something. And so I didn't, like, I just stopped sharing things. So it's like I was having therapy, but why was I even having therapy? Like, right. Because what could I say? I could just lie. Like, I mean, you should be able to talk to your therapist and be safe. Like
I could understand, like, if they flagged something or like, oh, well, you know, like this, okay, then this needs to get shared. But if it's something like, this has nothing to do with the adoption process, like, it has nothing to do about, like,
it was just regular, like, hesitations of a person that is anxious, like, adopting a baby. Like, who isn't anxious that's adopting a baby that's pregnant and everything? And it was like, well, you said blah, 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 blah. It was unfair, and it felt so just, like, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Like, it hurt. Like, invasive. That's the word I was looking for. It felt so invasive. So basically, I just had to push through all of that. We started getting to the end. So three more months went by of this. And so by the end of that, I'm now having weekly visits at the OB because I'm, you know,
you're that far along,
pregnant.
Right.
And so then, you know, it just continues to get worse and worse. I'm getting closer and closer to, like, losing my job because I'm never there. And when I am there, I'm a mess because I'm tired and I'm sad. But so we're getting really close again, where she's talking about, like, finalization and everything. Like, we've jumped through all of the hoops. And then I get a phone call. And I'll never forget this. I was at work and she's, like, yelling at me. And she's like, I just spoke with the home health office and they said that you have 11 missed visits from the home health care, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whoa. I was like, no, I don't. And she's like, you don't talk right now. You're going to listen to me. And she's like, this is bad. This is bad, Brooke. And I'm not kidding. This woman is yelling at me. And I was like, I'm telling you, we didn't. And I'm, like, counting in my head. I'm like, were there even 11 visits altogether? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I cannot see how possibly that could have happened. Because then I'm, like, getting into my brain. I'm like, is it possible that we missed 11 times? I don't know how that's physically possible. So she's yelling at me, blah, 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 blah. So I hang up and I'm, like, sobbing. And my mom's like, we're going to the home health office right now. And so we went there and we talked to, like, the supervisor there. And she looked it up and she was like, oh, I see. This is a clerical error. Like, like, funny enough, amazingly, so that was just, it was awful though, because this is what that woman thought of me. That is what that woman thought of me. And she told me on that same phone call, she'd already called Ivy's doctors, her heart doctor and her, like, pediatrician. Because at the time there were two separate doctors. Now she just sees the same person. But and then apparently the pediatrician was like, well, I never would have written her a letter of recommendation if I had known that that would happen. And then apparently the other doctor was like, I don't think that Brooke would do that. Like, her heart doctor that she sees now still.
Right.
Like, that doesn't sound right. You need to look further into it. But, like, on the phone, of course, she hadn't told me that. She's like, well, doctor, blah, blah, blah. Like, she is not impressed. And she said she would not. So, like, it was awful. Like, so not only, like, did this happen and she's accusing me of it. She's like telling my daughter's like medical staff about it without even calling to like verify it. So I had to like physically drive there to get it cleared up when I told her like there is 0% chance that that is right. So anyway, that was awful. But clearly, like I said, though, that's just what this woman thought of me.
She still better not be working there.
Well, she is independent is the thing. And yes, she is still doing it. I check every once in a while. Yeah. I've heard things though. I am not the only person that has had a similar experience with her, which I guess I was glad to find that out, but not glad to find that out because that makes me sad for other people. So, sorry, I'm so thirsty. After that all gets cleared up, she comes over one more time for her last home visit. And amazingly at this visit, she's suddenly a nice person. And she's like, I read your notes with your therapist, and he said that you were feeling very nervous, and I don't want to be that person for you in your life. Like, really?
Really? It's a little late for that, lady.
Okay. So I don't know. She like was super nice, and she's like, okay, well, we're going to get we're going to schedule the date is what she said. And so she's like, I'm sending in the recommendation, which she did. And so I think like the next day or I don't know, within that week, she called and like we were able to get a court date set up. And the next day I quit my job. It's like the only reason I had kept my job was because I had to, because I wasn't married. That's another thing, because I wasn't married. My husband and I, who is, my husband now, obviously, he couldn't adopt her because you can't two single people cannot adopt the same child. So okay. I was the adopter. He was always in the picture and she knew that, but like legally he wasn't. So, what did I just say? I just lost my train of thought.
That you quit your job.
Oh, I quit my job. So the only reason that I had not yet was because on paper, I was the sole income provider for this child. And so obviously like I had to be there. But as soon as I found out like that, like I was done with this woman, never had to see her again in my life, I was like, deuces. Like I am not doing this anymore. And that was the best day of my life. And I walked in and I was like, I'm done. Like, sorry, y'all, but I am out of here. And I finished up like my 2 weeks and everything. So I would have been like, I think I was 36 weeks pregnant when we finalized. So
yeah, I remember seeing pictures when you
pregnant.
were there and
37
like
7 weeks. Yeah.
You were holding Ivy and you had a big old belly.
Oh, so pregnant. So, I like walk into the courtroom like, oh, and it was great. Like the judge. So one of the things that like one of her things throughout the entire thing was telling me that like the judge was going to go through with a fine tooth comb and just like even the wrong words could like just send him off and they could say no. This guy was the nicest person in the world. He was just like laughing at Ivy because Ivy was just hamming it up the whole time because she was there, of course, like with me, and she's just like yelling, but not like crying, but Ivy used to screech like really loud, like, and she was doing it like the whole time, and she was laughing and she loved attention. So like this guy was really funny and just like joking with us, and then so yeah, like it all went really, really well. Seamless day that she had me so terrified for. And I know this guy probably didn't even read the whole thing, to be honest. Like, I think he skimmed it. Like he's like, oh, when I see you're pregnant. I'm like, like, yeah, that ruined my life for a while there. No, I'm like, I guess I am. It's very offensive to this woman. Like, but no, it was great. So we got our pictures, and like when my husband walked up with me, like to get pictures with us, he's like, "Oh, we're gonna see you back here in a little bit now." Like, so it's ridiculous, but it was a great day. It was, and I love that day. Like that's like my favorite day where I could breathe. That was the first day of my pregnancy that I could breathe, except for I couldn't breathe because I was like 37 weeks pregnant. So I could emotionally breathe.
What was the date of Ivy's adoption? Like finalized adoption?
October 7th. I always get the 7th or the 8th or the 9th. Oh, the 9th. October 9th. Sorry.
October 9th.
Because like I have like like me and my husband's like dating anniversary was the 8th. And I always remember it was either the day before or the day after. It gets me all screwed up. October 9th is the date of her finalization. And it was a beautiful, wonderful day.
So almost
It
a year.
was. Yeah, it was a long time. It was a long time. And then
the pregnancy is what set it back.
The pregnancy is what set it back. We were talking about finalization. We might have even had a finalization date picked out. I mean, we were so close that is what we were talking about. Like, we were weeks away from finalization. And yeah, then I was pregnant, and that was awful. That was just awful for her.
So to backtrack, I know we said we were going to go back to it. Did your mom have as much issues adopting your brother as you had with adopting Ivy, in the sense, because with his, I know he wasn't born in the US.
No.
So
No.
I know that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, his was it's just a completely different, well, because they went through an agency as one. So they went through, because he's from Russia, so it was like a Russian adoption agency that they went through. So they like picked out, like, well, actually the lady like picked out his photo and was like, here, he looks like your husband. Like, it was funny. But anyway, so they actually, most of their process was already done before they even got there. And they had a very fast process as far as like international adoption went. I feel like it was only like, it was faster than my adoption with Ivy, like beginning to end. Like, and they got a whole kid from another country. Like,
they got a whole kid.
A whole
kid from Russia.
So yeah, so they actually were finalized like in Russia. So like they took him to court with them in Russia, and so then it was done. Like, so
that's just crazy to me how much different that process was. Like in Russia, they're like, "Yep, here is this kid.
Go ahead,
he is yours." But in the U.S., they're like, "Oh, well, you got to jump through all of these hoops just to get a kid."
You're pregnant, so
yeah.
Well, and they did change things a little bit after that too, though. I mean, because this was quite a while before I adopted, and I think that international adoption looks a little bit different now too. Well, actually, one of the reasons why it was faster is because this was right after September 11th. So they adopted him in October of 2001. So usually they would have 2 trips. So they would go there for a trip and then come back a couple months later and take their child home. But they were trying to not have people on airplanes as much as possible. So I think that's one thing that kind of sped it up a little bit. They just kind of like pushed it through. But
and,
yeah.
And your brother wasn't a baby. He was a little older, wasn't he?
He was like 3.5.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And so I definitely remember her, them bringing him. I didn't get to go with to Russia, and I was so mad and hurt about that. I was so pissed. I was really not impressed. I stayed home with my grandparents.
But you were like, how old were you? Because you, I guess 2001. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Well, I don't think they wanted to bring a 9-year-old with them to Russia.
No, probably not.
So, yeah. So I stayed with my grandparents, and I got to like talk to them on the phone, and he said his little like cute little Russian words on the phone, and it was so, oh my gosh. Where'd you go?
Oh, she's here.
There we go.
Okay.
All glitched.
Anyway, no, it was really sweet. So, but then yes, to circle back around to our earlier topic, when my mom got home from Russia, she was like, gosh, I cannot like kick this jet lag. Like, what is this? For like a couple weeks after. And then, yeah, come to find out, my mother was pregnant in Russia with my brother, which again was a similar feeling to what I had when I found out I was pregnant with Ray, of like, you know, being scared, like for, you know, feeling bad because you just adopted a baby, being scared because she had had literally 9 pregnancy losses between me. She had not had any healthy pregnancies, like, and I was 9 at this point, and she lost.
And it's just crazy because even like with you, our moms were teen parents.
Yeah.
So the fact that your mom and my mom both got pregnant at 17.
Yeah, and I was healthy. Like,
yeah, and you just happened to be.
Whoa! We just switched. Sorry.
Well, I'm in the middle.
There we go.
Oh, dang.
I got it. So yeah, because normally, yeah, with that, your mom didn't have to worry about that at first because you were her first pregnancy and you just happened to be healthy.
Yeah.
You were just
she
like,
knew that it was a possibility because there'd been other family members that had
Right.
lost babies, but yeah, she just she didn't know the reality of it though. Like until you've been through it, you just can't. I didn't, because it's like when something is like your thing, you just think like that won't happen to me. It doesn't feel possible. Like that's kind of
Right.
where I was in my mind. Like that can't possibly happen. Like because you're just, I guess that's just how your brain like protects you. But then 9 losses. She had 3 failed in vitro fertilization attempts and a failed adoption, where we actually went to North Carolina to pick up a baby, and the mom had fled the hospital.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
It was a sad situation. The mom was homeless and had drug problems. She had all of her other children removed from the home, and she actually left the hospital without permission. But it didn't matter at that point, because if she doesn't sign the paperwork, she doesn't sign the paperwork. And I hope that her and that baby ended up being okay and living an okay life. I hope she got help. That's what I hope.
We have talked in the past, me and Erica, because I have a really big, weird family tree,
Mhm.
but you have a very big family tree because of everything as well.
Yeah.
So you're the eldest. Well, no, that is a lie. Your father has another child.
Yeah.
We don't like to discuss that, but
we don't talk about that guy.
Technically you have an older sibling.
Yes.
And then it's you. And then your mom had some of the failed pregnancies and stuff like that in between.
Yep.
And then you adopted your brother.
Yep.
John.
Yeah. John.
And well, even though we
Yorgi,
don't call him John, we call him Yorgi.
I still call him Yorgi, but he professionally and personally to not our family goes by John, which
I'm still calling him Yorgi.
He's Yorgi. He knows it though. He understands. He gets it.
And then you have Caden, your younger brother, who was the miracle child. And then after that, then there was Kylie.
Yep.
What, did your mom have a pregnancy in between, or was it just Kylie happened?
No, then Kylie, and then 10 years later, here's Sebastian. Boom. Like,
so Brooke has a younger brother who is younger than her kids.
Yeah, he is. So right now, Ray and Sebastian are both 8 years old. Ray will be 9 on November 5th. And then Ivy and Ray will both be 9 years old until Ivy turns 10 in January. So funny story though, and I might have said this on the last one, I don't remember. There are 9 months and 22 days between each set. So like,
oh yeah,
Ivy and Ray are 9 months and 22 days apart in age. And then Ray and Sebastian are 9 months and 22 days in age apart from each other. It's just wild the way that worked out. And they were all born in the same hospital room at Covenant.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that's been really fun watching them grow up together though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild. I mean, it's been my whole life, going through everything with my mom and then going through my own very unique story myself, and I made the choice a while ago, several years ago, that I was done because I with pregnancies for sure, because of what I watched my mom go through. And I have 2 amazing children and I'm like, I can't open up that wound. I'm not opposed to potentially adopting like an older child someday, maybe like elementary age or something. If we ever get a bigger house, that's something I'd like to keep on the table. Maybe some fostering. I do have a tiny part of me that feels like my story isn't done. I don't know. I don't want another baby. I don't want another baby. I just feel like everything that I've been through, and I've struggled with my mental health and postpartum depression and just like everything that I've worked so hard for, it would be very difficult to start over. And I'm able to work right now and everything, but maybe someday that's why I feel like maybe an older child that needs someone, and that I can be, I don't know. I just feel like there's just something, I don't know. I just have a feeling.
You guys are on such a good track now, because I know I've seen you through a whole, like that whole time in your life. Because even before that, you were not 21 yet, but you were, you were a party girl. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you, like you said, after that first miscarriage, then you like settled down, and then you were like, all right, I want to be a mom. And that's what you had your heart set on.
It was.
And
Yeah, that was
then
literally all I thought about.
And then after that, it was like, all right, then trying to cope with having a baby and then having another baby so close in age. And then you dealt with everything with your mental health issue stuff. And
Still dealing with mental health issue stuff, but I'm
you're on track now.
I
mean,
am. I mean, and I've come leaps and bounds, and that's something I have to always remind myself of.
Yeah.
Just
You were
looking
definitely not the same person you were. I mean, even like 4 years ago.
No. Yeah.
You were a completely different person.
Mhm. For sure. For sure. But yeah, it's just it's kind of wild talking about it all like laid out like this. Like I said, like I buried this part of my life for a very long time. I think like when I think about my kids, my timeline starts after the adoption is finalized. I mean, and that makes me sad for Ivy. And it makes me, of course, that mom guilt hits because like Ivy was a baby. Ivy was almost 10 months old when Ray was born, and her early days of her life are just so hard for me to even recall, like, because it's painful. And like, obviously I remember it and I have pictures and everything. It just feels tainted. It feels tainted because of what I was going through at the time and because I had to be okay. And that's probably one reason why I fell apart so badly after Ray was born, because I had no choice but to be okay during my entire pregnancy. I had to, and then I just kind of unraveled. Like I ended, and it just lasted for a while. And then of course I was guilty because I'm like, I adopted a baby and I'm a mess and I don't deserve my baby, because, you know, that's what mental illness does, is it says mean things.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
But no, it's nice for me to be able to look back at it from like a perspective of like a 30-some-year-old human, considering the fact that this is a 21-year-old human going through it and being like, dang girl, you survived that, instead of looking back and being like upset with myself because I had a hard time, because of course I had a hard time.
You had a lot of stuff going on all at once. Yeah.
And just like finding that grace for myself, that's been very healing for me to like find like grace for that part of my life. Definitely.
Yeah.
That version of me.
You are definitely a different version of yourself. You've grown from leaps and bounds.
It's been a lot.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course. Of course.
We definitely enjoy having you on. Your stories are always so unique. You're one of those people like, oh yeah, I've been through that. Do you want me to share about it?
Hey, you know, it's been a life.
Yeah, I've been through it. But yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Brooke. We really appreciate you coming on. We'll hope to have you on again sometime soon too, to talk about more of your experiences, because you have more stories. We can go on.
Yeah, and I love to talk, so
Oh, alrighty.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll see you again sometime.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye, Brooke.
Bye.
Alrighty. Yes, Brooke has been my best friend literally since birth. So like she's talking about stuff, I'm like, yep, I remember that. Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, I just like saw like your face expressions. You're like the gears were turning, like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I was just in the background, but yeah, yep, I remember that happening. And Brooke's always really big on social media too. So she has put her story. It's definitely one thing writing about your story and then reading it and then like having her talk about it, because it's completely different. So, and then it's almost like reliving that again, like, oh yeah, I remember all that. But okay, that's going to wrap up this episode. Again, we want to thank Brooke for sharing everything with us. If you would like to share any of your trauma with us, you can go ahead and shoot us an email. Our email is sorryfortraumadumpingpodcast@gmail.com. It's really long, but
you won't forget it.
Yeah. We also have TikTok and Instagram and a Facebook group, a Facebook page, so you can follow us on all of that stuff too. But that's gonna wrap up this episode. We'll see you again next time.
Okay.
Bye girl. Bye.